You're with The Capitalist Sage, a twice-a-month podcast that seeks out entrepreneurs and experts that speak to the real-world life of doing business for their sage advice. Now, with your hosts, Karl Barham and Rico Figliolini.
Welcome, everyone, to Capitalist Sage Podcast. We are here to bring you advice and tips from seasoned pros and experts to help you improve your business. I'm Karl Barham with Transworld Business Advisor, and my co-host is Rico Figliolini with Mighty Rockets Digital Marketing and the publisher of Peachtree Corners magazine. Hey, Rico.
Hey, Karl. Thanks for introducing us.
No problem. Today's guest is Cliff Bramble, an entrepreneur and founder and owner of Noble Fin Restaurant. Also, he has a new company called Hungry Hospitality, and he's also a part owner of Rathburn's Restaurants. Lots of years of experience in the restaurant business. Here to share with our audience today a little bit about himself and about tips that can help you improve your restaurant business. Hey, Cliff, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Nice and sunny outside. Perfect day.
Perfect.
Appreciate you coming out.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So we're going to jump right into it, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what made you go into the restaurant business.
Absolutely. Well, the restaurant business, I've been in the restaurant business for about 40 years. And it wasn't the first time I actually got in the restaurant business that I wanted to be in the restaurant business, because that night I only made $5.
Really?
That was my first night. But you know what? I learned to love the restaurant business. And just when I got in there, the adrenaline that you go through, and you learn the business and everything that's happening in the restaurant, it's really exciting. So it's when you really start to get into the ownership that you realize that there's a lot of little things that really have to make things happen, and you have to do it on a daily basis. So when it really comes down to it, what I like about the restaurant business, I can do a million different things, and I can also watch people walk out happy. And we're kind of in the immediate fix-it business as well, because if there's something wrong, we should be able to fix it right away, especially if it's a service or a food-related issue.
All right. So, from your perspective, what makes the restaurant business a great business to be in?
Well, you know, the restaurant business it's one of those businesses where, you know, what makes it great? I guess a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes down to entrepreneurial, if you're a chef, you can learn more on a daily basis. When it comes down to cooking, you can learn about the entire business. And I think that once you're in the restaurant business, you can really get into any business as long as you understand all the facets that go into it. But there's a lot of people who always want to get into a business. I know a lot of doctors and attorneys who always say, man, I'd always love to get into that restaurant business. And I always ask them if they'd like to come and work with me for a couple days. But it's fun, it's exciting on a daily basis, and as long as you don't burn out and go to a point where you just say, I've had enough, it's going to be a fun time. You kind of have to know when you go in, you're at work, but then when you leave, you're a little step away.
Isn't it a bit of a lifestyle thing, though?
It is a lifestyle, there's no question. You have to, you know, when you first get into it, I can tell you 30 years ago, has the industry changed? It definitely has changed, because you know, years ago I would go to work at at 5:30 in the morning. I would come home at 11 o'clock at night. And now there's a lot more people with families that are involved and kids, and obviously, you know, you have your wife at home as well, or as she's working and she's traveling, and then all of a sudden you have kids. It throws a whole different lifestyle change into it. So you have to really accept the lifestyle. And just like any job, it's a job, but you also have to make time separated away from it as well.
When you visit other restaurants, what do you see other business owners getting wrong or could improve on when you kind of visit some of the others?
Well, you know, the most important part is knowing the business. And it's funny, I spoke with somebody today, and they gave me a story about why they were really not happy working at a specific restaurant. And it really comes down to the ethics of the restaurant owners, you know, what's going on at the restaurant, and whether they're doing the right things and the wrong things. And somebody told me many, many years ago, I'm going to show you how to do the right thing, because you can always do the wrong thing. But if you never know the right way, then you'll never know how to do it.
Mm.
So, you know, there's a lot of avenues that are fun. You know,
Isn't it like sports a little bit that if you don't do that golf putting the right way and you keep doing it the wrong way, you'll never break that habit, right?
That's true. You know, you can't let yourself get up or in the morning or I should say, really, when you leave at the end of the night. When you leave the restaurant at the end of the night, at the end of the day, it's still a business. And you know, there's a lot of people who will hang out 2 and 3 hours or go out and then come home at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then realize they have to get up the next morning at 8. And you know, I think the restaurant business has really changed where there's less people doing that and more people saying, hey, it's a business and having a good time at it, and we have to do all the right things. So
I remember a time when folks would go into a restaurant. I had friends and family that would open up a restaurant because of their passion for food. And I can see that carrying you to get started and carrying you the first few years. Then it transitions into a business. What are some of the elements of the business side of a restaurant that owners sometimes never really fully grasp?
Well, I think you said it perfectly. It's a business first. It's definitely a business first, and it's a restaurant as well. But you have to really pay attention to every little item that's going on. So when you mention what don't they grasp, I think people, they may grasp it, but understanding it is also another factor. So, you know, with restaurants, it's labor. Labor is the first thing that you're always paying attention to. And if the business isn't there, you have to cut your labor. That's all there is to it. And sometimes it's difficult because you're trying to give the people in the kitchen, for example, the 35, 40 hours every single week, whereas the front of the house, they're making tips. So it's easier to cut those guys, but more so it's important for businesses to really pay attention to everything that's going on in the restaurant. And it does have to do with the marketing, does have to do with the financials, does have to do with your labor and the staffing and the retention of the staff as well.
I was going to say, as far as staff goes, I know from experience going out to eat and such, I'll go to one place, get a great salad, go there 2 weeks later with my wife, and that same salad would be using a different leaf, made differently. And sometimes I wonder, is it the shortage of product, or is it the person in the kitchen just not preparing it exactly? I don't want a McDonald's. I don't want it the same way every time, but I want the same leaf, same stuff in the salad, you know?
Well, you know what, it's the chain restaurants have it down perfect. I will tell you, there's a lot of chain restaurants. McDonald's is a great example. I mean, hey, they've got it down perfect. They know the sweet and the saltiness that goes onto that hamburger, and that's what people like. But when you go into a restaurant one time and if the dressing is a little different this time compared to 2 weeks ago, it could be a variable of items. It could be that they're not doing line checks, the cooks or the chefs aren't doing the line checks. Somebody different may have made it. They may have hired somebody new, and every time in the restaurant business, when you hire new cooks, sometimes the food changes. So it's very important to have that retention of the staff, especially in the kitchen. And then when you have the chef has to pay attention as well, because the chef is going around tasting all those different items. But when it comes down to it, sometimes the leaves on the salad, there's no question. Sometimes, you know, you have to, you know, like 2 months ago, all of a sudden the Caesar salads, for example, you couldn't serve Caesar salads, and everybody was scrambling for, oh man, what do we do? Well, you know, we, for example, you know, went and called our vendor and said, hey, where do we get our, where does this romaine lettuce come from? And it came from Southern California, so we were safe. But in the public's eye, we couldn't keep that on the menu because everybody thought it was bad. So you have to change it out. And there's a lot of variables. There's no question. The dressing might be different. The vegetables may have changed, and so you have to do the best to sometimes change things.
If you don't mind me asking, let me ask you something else to drill down a little bit more. So you called your vendor and you said, okay, I know now that it comes from there as opposed to, I think it's Arizona, where most of the romaine comes from. You know, you're asking them, they're your partner essentially, they're providing the stuff. So you're asking them for advice, you're getting their expert.
Absolutely.
Did they replace it with something else, or did you just decide not to?
Ours actually was fine. So what we decided was, because there were at least 4 or 5 people came in very, very quickly, and they said, hey, this is not supposed to be on the menu. Because again, it's public perception.
That's right.
And let's face it, the microphones go a lot further than millions of people than just one restaurant. So we actually took it off the menu, and that was the safest thing to do, and for peace of mind for people as well.
You mentioned about labor and retention, and I talk to hundreds of business owners every month and a lot of restaurant owners. And right now, the war for talent and people is high. People are really struggling to find. Have you figured out any strategies or things you do to help improve your retention rates at your restaurants or find better talent people? Any tricks and tips that you could offer?
Well, you know what? Everybody always wants to learn more, without a question. But it's really how you treat the employees, how you're going to pay the employees to try to retain them. And there's no question about it. The talent is very, very tough, whether it's for management, whether it's for a server, or whether it's for cooks, chefs. It's tough. So when it comes down to trying to retain them, sometimes you have to ask yourself, is it better to spend an extra 50 cents an hour on an individual than to go outside and try to find somebody and you have a 50% chance of that individual actually working?
Mm.
So at the end of the day, if you have people that are working for you for a year, 2 years, you know what, your goal is to keep them. And honestly, if it's an extra quarter that you have to give them, that quarter will save you thousands of dollars trying to find somebody new.
Mm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
How about that?
No, I was just thinking about, what was the TV show that this guy went around and redid restaurants and stuff?
Oh.
I forget the name of that show.
Same guy, Gordon Ramsay's show when he did fixing the restaurants.
No, it wasn't Ramsay, it was someone else. But I found that show interesting because it was just like you're going into a restaurant that's downtrodden, variety of issues going on, labor,
Absolutely.
supply line, the whole thing, and then actually families in some cases
Yes.
working in the same business. And how do you do? I mean, I don't know if you've dealt with that, or in businesses you've owned where you have partners.
Right.
And where you want to make some cost adjustments, or you want to make some adjustments to become a better, profitable business.
Right.
Do you see that becoming a problem sometimes?
Well, you know what? The most important part is everybody knowing what their job responsibility is.
Mm.
So if my job responsibility is not in the kitchen, I really don't have much of a say in the kitchen. If I didn't like that hamburger and I don't like the way it looks, I may give an opinion, but at the same time, when you're dealing with partners and family members, for example, everybody has to have the job responsibility. And if nobody likes to be told what to do with their job, especially if it's not their job. So I always say, hey, everybody has their own responsibility, and let's make that happen. And as long as everybody's doing their own thing, that's usually a good thing. It's when they're not doing their own thing, and that gets people in trouble, and then the arguments start. That's never fun.
I see that a lot when you talk to owners, when there's multiple owners. It's sometimes easier when you talk to a single owner, their vision, and there's kind of a chain of authority, you might say. But when I see folks that are working together, I always ask the question, who's responsible for what early on, and that gives me an indication of what's going on in that business and what the dynamics are to look at that. So that's really good advice.
Absolutely.
When you think about marketing, you've done a lot of really cool things to help market your business. Anything out of the ordinary kind of print and those type traditional methods you found to be successful that you don't see enough people utilizing and doing?
Well, when it comes down to the marketing of any business, whether it's a restaurant or any business whatsoever, if you're going to do the marketing and if you're familiar with it, that's fine. But it does take a lot of time.
Mm.
So when it comes down to marketing in itself, I mean, the first and most important part is, hey, making sure you have your media kit ready, making sure that you have, if you're looking to get into, in the restaurant business, if you want to get into Forbes magazine, for example, on their dining issue, well, you need to have the right individuals to contact. And at the same time, you can't be afraid to pick up the phone. I've always said, hey, if I see something written in Forbes magazine, for example, I always look at the masthead of the magazine. I want to know who the writers are. And because that's important. If you have the right contacts and you know how to go out there and pitch them, if you pitch it to 10 different writers, hopefully you get 1 or 2 persons that's interested in it. But the marketing business has definitely changed. You mentioned print media. Print media is definitely changing because you have social media out there as well. And social media, it's a whole different ballgame as well. But if you use it correctly, and if you're using Instagram or you're using LinkedIn or you're using even Facebook, and you tag individuals, number one, it's tough to know if they have actually have ever seen it. You know, you hope they have, but it's the ultimate compliment when they do call you up, or you don't even realize that they took your information and they ran with it and they wrote an article about it, and that's a nice thing. So I've been fortunate in that regards where writers have done that, and they've taken the information, whether it's from your website or yourself, that you have fed them. I always say, hey, you have to feed the beast, and you have to feed the beast of the media, of the people out there who need the information, because they really can't do their job unless you give them the information.
You know, it's funny the way you went into the writer part and the publicity part, which is good marketing. You didn't get into the social media for the consumer side.
Right.
But I found, because very few people talk about that, about getting publicity that way and using social media that way,
Right.
to tag the writers, to get them interested.
Well, tagging the writers in the magazines, you know, it's just another avenue. You have to try everything that you possibly can. When you have a business and you have a restaurant, whether it's any type of business, if you're trying to market your restaurant, you're marketing it because you want to get great word of mouth. Word of mouth is the number one reason people are going to come in for your restaurant. They're the number one reason why they find out about you. And I'll tell you what, the credibility of being a food magazine is fantastic, or the credibility of having somebody write an article about you, it goes a long ways, because you can continue to market that. Instagram, Facebook, and all those, I mean, there's a lot of intangible areas there that are difficult to really put the data on, but at the same time, you're maintaining that brand awareness.
So even businesses not in the industry, not in food, they should be doing that in their industry as well.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're a sign company, you know, this is a great example. If you're a sign company, you should know the 10 best sign magazines that are out there. Because there's on that masthead in that magazine, it tells you the writers who are writing those articles. Well, you might not have their emails, and you might not have their phone numbers, but if you look them up on the internet, there's data out there, you can find them, and hopefully you can get, you know, you can pitch that different sign that you have coming up that nobody's ever done before. You know?
I remember seeing when Amazon started doing the reviews to help people, and I don't know that it consciously happened, but I know most people will look at those reviews and make a purchase decision based on people they don't know. They read 3 or 4 reviews and they love it, and they're literally making their purchase decision on people they don't know. When you look at restaurant business, are there places where people do? I know next door people look on. But when I look for a restaurant, I'll see Yelp, I'll see Nextdoor, and I see people commenting. I don't know that I'm as far along as I am with Amazon to make a choice on where to go based on those. Have you seen that happening, and do you use some of those medias to help?
You know, the reviews are out there. I mean, the reviews on whether it's Yelp, Google, hotel websites, the reviews are out there. People do read the reviews, and when I went to Charleston a couple months ago, and the first thing I did was look at the reviews on certain hotels, and it gives it good credibility, or bad, you know, and you don't want the bad, but it does do. The perception and the credibility of that establishment is definitely there by those reviews. So, you know, the goal is to have all positive reviews, but you can't please everybody. When you serve 5,000 people every single month or 6,000 people every single month, sooner or later somebody's going to write something negative. But at the same time, you can always, the way Yelp is set up, you can respond to them. The way Facebook is a great example as well. Facebook has the reviews, you can respond to those people as well. Now, you can respond to them, but they never might respond back to you, you know. But I do find that the credibility of Yelp and Google reviews, although they are there, the number of times that individual has written a review is important as well. If it's their first time and they don't have a profile on their face on their profile, you know, sometimes you wonder if it's a real person. But if it says that they've given 350 reviews and their reviews are 10 paragraphs long, the credibility is definitely there.
So if I could ask a little bit different, so we talked a little bit about marketing, we talked a little bit about labor and some of the food stuff. Let's get to the P&L statements of a restaurant and so on. What are some of the things you think people that are either entering being a restaurant owner or existing ones should really understand around their P&L, profit and loss statement on their business?
Well, the profit and loss statement, without a question, I mean, it's your checkup, it's your health checkup of your business, if you wanna look at it that way. The profitability of any company, whether it's a restaurant or anything, it relies on that. So you can have a clean profit and loss statement, and as well as a balance sheet. The balance sheet is obviously how strong you're going to be. But when it comes down to the P&L, especially for somebody who's just getting into the restaurant business, hey, the first thing is they have to know who their accountant is and where they're putting or coding all of their invoices. And their general ledger is going to tell them that really, really quickly. But when it comes down to looking at the P&L and really understanding it, they need to know their prime costs. That's the first most important thing. They need to know their cost of sales, and they need to know their labor. So their cost of sales and their labor is going to make up their prime costs. And if they look at it in the upscale restaurant segment, and it's over 68, 69%, that's a high prime cost. But they also have to pay attention to every one of those operating line items. But labor is definitely one of the most important parts of it. So you can start really, really easy by making that P&L really look good with the best sales that you're going to have. Sales drive everything. But at the same time, as you look at it through the week, the scheduling, the management scheduling the staff is definitely very important too. Because if you schedule your staff incorrectly or over schedule, it's very difficult to cut them during the week. So it's very important to, in my opinion, to pay attention to the schedule before the week is started. And that way the numbers fall in line correctly. But the P&L statement, you're going to look at your occupancy costs, the occupancy costs that either whether you own the business or not, or own the building or not. You got to look at your occupancy costs of what it's costing you, and then obviously your utilities. Utilities run up there, and people when they look at electric bills of $3,000 and $4,000 and $5,000 in a restaurant, they go, whoa, what's going on? But restaurants they're expensive to operate, without a question.
It's changed, I'd imagine, over the years, though, right? Like a couple of decades ago, a lot of it, half of it was probably cash.
Oh, yeah.
Less of it was credit and debit. Today, probably, I don't know what the percentage, but I gotta believe what in the 80s or 90s are paid in debit or credit.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of restaurants in the upscale segment,
Right.
Without a question. I say upscale, 50 to a higher check average per person. Without a question, you're looking at 90 to 92% people paying credit cards. So the cash is definitely very limited. Now, you're going to see more cash on certain days throughout the year, but for the most part, people who pay credit cards, they're expensive. A restaurant has to pay usually 3 to 3.2% on every time somebody uses a credit card. And I always joke, I should say I should be in the credit card business.
Yeah.
Get a little piece of the action.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have just a little piece.
I have noticed some folks shifting over to Square and some of these other payment platforms in there. Have you thought about or have you integrated any of those into your businesses?
I've spoken with Square about their POS system. I think they have a great POS system. And I've looked at it. I wouldn't change just because of the expense that goes onto it. However, Square is a great example for a smaller, fast casual restaurant. But I will tell you this much: Square is a good option, but you're still going to pay 3% transaction fee.
Yeah, the rates aren't that much different.
Yeah.
No, usually, right?
Right.
It's not that much of a difference from Square or the other stuff. It's just nicer when you say Square.
Yeah.
And you use the Square. It's just nice to look.
You know what? I love Square. I think what they're doing is a great for the restaurant business. They've integrated a lot of different variables that have not been integrated in the last 5 or 10 years. And the restaurant business is definitely one of the ones that have been the slower changes when it comes down to technology. But the opportunities are out there for restaurants to really look at a lot of different POS systems and use their data accordingly, especially even with OpenTable. OpenTable now works as a plugin that goes into your POS system, and you can look at all your data. You're looking at one computer, it's telling you when a table is getting up, when a table is on dessert. It tells you all different types, and so the data is very important too.
Do you find companies like DoorDash or companies like that useful too?
You know what?
Or Uber Eats or any of
when you say useful, it just depends on how you mean useful. In the upscale segment, I don't know how much useful, but I think that there's a segment out there that definitely are using those people, or those companies, and they still take 30-35%. That's basically your labor, you know. So it would be nice if you had 100 orders a day from DoorDash, and you were a little taco stand or a hamburger place. That's fantastic. It's like people in mind, but there's an expense to all of that. So to me, it's, again, it's another competitor in the industry.
I remember once we were talking about a restaurant I visited with you, and you said, my competition isn't another restaurant, my competition is Netflix.
That's right. Hulu, Netflix, I mean, you name it. The restaurant industry, there's competitors coming up all the time. And you look at DoorDash, and you look at Netflix, and you look at Hulu, Amazon Prime, all these movie places. Hey man, all they're doing is telling people to stay home and not go out and eat. I mean, even a snowstorm is a competitor because it doesn't let people leave the house.
That's so true. I wonder, so if you were looking at a restaurant, are there things that you would look for in a restaurant to say this is a worthwhile investment?
Well, sales is the first part, and then covers the number of people coming in and out of that restaurant, because everything else should fall in line. If your sales are great and your covers are growing, not your check average, but your covers, which is the number of people going in a restaurant. If those are growing, hey, that's all fantastic. If they remain the same year after year, but the sales are still there, that's great. And there's also profitability there too. So, there's many years ago, there was a place that opened up, Boston Chicken. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the story about Boston Chicken. The guy who, I forgot the gentleman's name, but he sat outside across from the parking lot from Boston Chicken, and he watched those people line up. And there were 15, 20, 30, 45 people standing in line for lunch. That's what made him invest in Boston Chicken and put those all around the United States. There was a line out the front door. Everybody wants a line.
Yes.
So
you look at when Chick-fil-A opens up the store, they have people staying there overnight at the store opening.
They do a great job, So there's no question, if you look at a restaurant, you want to have a successful team, you want to have successful sales, but you also want to have the number of people coming in there quite consistently, and that just brings more people to you. So the sales drive everything.
We're heading into the end of the podcast.
So if I could ask you, thank you for sharing some of those insights. So what do you have going on? Is anything? What are you doing now? Anything new that you're doing?
Well, I just started a new company called Hungry Hospitality. Hungry Hospitality is a restaurant consulting company, and what we do is really we look at restaurants and opportunities for their marketing, for startups, for financial, really everything I've been giving away for free for 30 years. I'm finally going to say, okay, I'm going to charge for this. So it's interesting because a lot of people have called me in the last 2 weeks. They have a lot of everyone has a different question. And a lot of them has to do with marketing, without a question. Marketing is always key because people's first question is, how can I get more business? And it does go back to creativity. It does go back to giving information out to the public. But, I have, the Hungry Hospitality is going on, and I'm always looking for different opportunities to expand, or maybe another restaurant, and we'll see what happens.
Where can they find more information?
They can go to hungryhospitality.com, or if they want to go to the restaurant, they can go to noblefin.com. And we're always around. We're always online 24/7.
Right. Oh, that's fabulous. Well, I want to thank you for being a guest today and helping share some of your experience and advice with our audience. I want to thank Atlanta Tech Park for hosting us.
Great place.
Really good place for you to check out. If you're thinking of starting a business or looking for a great environment to work, definitely come by, take a tour of Atlanta Tech Park. I think it's really good. A really good place for folks that are starting out in business, and it's a great environment for folks to exchange ideas. I'm Karl Barham with Transworld Business Advisor of Atlanta Peachtree. And if you're looking to purchase or sell a business, please contact me, and we'll have a free consultation on that. And also, my co-host, Rico, I'd like you to tell a little bit about what you have going on.
Sure. So my name is Rico Figliolini. I do these podcasts, and I thank Karl because Karl does the heavy lifting here, actually, on this podcast. I also do a podcast called City Prime Lunchtime with City Manager. That's once a month. We discuss issues about what's going on in the city. And that's cool with Brian Johnson. He's a straight shooter. We spend an hour talking about all sorts of stuff. We also do Peachtree Corners Life, which is about the city and things going on in the city. We interview political candidates. We have other people that show up, the writers, authors, and pageant winners. And it's an interesting group of interviews that I get a chance to meet lots of different people. And then the Ed Hour, which is about the education system here in Gwinnett County. I do that with Alan Kaplan, who's my co-host on that show. So that's instead of golf. This is what I do. So I do that. My real job is I'm a creative director and social media marketing person. So I have clients along those lines that I do work with. And soon I will be a publisher again with Peachtree Corners magazine. So that'll be coming out at the beginning of February. It's a quarterly print magazine along with a website. And we're going to be hopefully telling good, great, compelling stories about this city, this community, and people that live here.
I love that that's coming out. I think local news and understanding what's going on in the community is a challenge to find now.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're looking for restaurant ideas or what's going on in the city, I think a local magazine like that. So thank you for pulling that together and
Sure.
getting that going. So excited to see that.
Yes, I can't wait to get it out the door into the printer.
Well, we'd like to thank you. We have more guests coming in the upcoming weeks. Our next guest will be focused on accounting impact of tax changes in the new coming year. So there's some things that if you own a business you should know about and should be asking your accountant about, and that's going to be a focus of that. In our next podcast, and we have more to come after that. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
This has been The Capitalist Sage with Karl Barham and Rico Figliolini, the twice-a-month podcast with entrepreneurs and business experts. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Want more? Visit our website at capitalistsagepodcast.com.